Welcome to Our Future is Kind, a podcast exploring how we build the future we want to live in, one kind act at a time. I'm your host, Michael Neese, president of Our Future is Kind, and your companion in conversations about kindness, leadership, connection, and courage. Each week, I sit down with thoughtful leaders, creators, and bridge builders to explore what a healthier, more humane future could look like, and the choices it takes to build it. These are honest conversations about purpose, culture, curiosity, and what it really means to show up for one another at work, in our communities, and in everyday life. Along the way, we'll unearth practical ideas, small but meaningful acts, and questions worth sitting with, because building what's next is a choice. So let's dive in. Hamner is a visionary author, speaker, and children's empowerment advocate on a mission to help children embrace their inner light and believe in themselves and their dreams. Through her stories, workshops, and literacy initiatives, she equips children with the confidence, self-esteem, gratitude, intuition, positive mindset, and emotional intelligence they need to investigate and navigate an ever-changing world. Margie Hamner, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm so glad to have you here. I know that we both publish through Brave Healers, and so it's one of the reasons why I really wanted to highlight you is that you put out some amazing books. But before we dig into that, I'm going to ask you the million-dollar question. Margie Hamner, what makes you, you?
What makes me, me, or makes me Margie Hamner? Well, I have a unique background in that I was a human resources specialist and consultant and coach for 30 years. And about 3 years ago, I pivoted to shifting to empowering children instead of the current workforce. It was kind of a new thing for me, and I'm excited to do that. So all the things I used to teach leaders and workplace folks how to be kind and emotionally intelligent and confident, I'm now doing with kids.
You have been a writer for about how long? I mean, when did you first get the writing bug and start really generating writings of your own?
Yeah, well, that really just happened 3 years ago, which was one of the reasons why I pivoted. So I started writing books probably about 3 years ago, maybe a year and a half, about 3 years ago that I started writing. It was unexpected. I'm not sure if you want to hear about that story, that backstory.
Sure. Of course. Just anything you want to share about it.
Well, so I was on a Zoom call with folks around the world on a mastermind and trying to determine what my next chapter was. I kind of woke up on January 2023, kind of like done with leadership coaching and training, just kind of felt like it was done, but I didn't know what else I wanted to do. I was turning 60 that year, still felt like I had more to give in the world rather than being retired. And on the Zoom call, I had an unexpected vision. And it was something that really kind of stopped me in my tracks. So, the facilitator of that mastermind asked us to do something unusual, I thought, like rubbing our hands together and feeling the energy between our hands and pushing it out on the screen, sending everybody on the Zoom call energy. And I thought, this is kind of weird. Like, we can't do that. And then I closed my eyes, and the next thing I knew, I wasn't here in the office that you see behind me. I was no longer here. I saw my personal way I looked at when I did training classes, like my little outfit I would wear, my professional power suit. I saw it being zipped off, and out came this other Margie who was more wearing bohemian gypsy clothes, and I was holding a ball of light, and I was in a field with children, and I was sharing this ball of light with children who was putting it in their hearts. And then they all walked away, like, if you remember the show Care Bears, they all walked away shining their lights. And then I'm like, and then Fernando, the facilitator, goes, okay, everyone, welcome back. And then bam, I'm here.
Wow.
So I was like, what the hell just happened to me? And so I really kind of prayed about it and wondered about it. And it inspired me to write the first book, which was The Magic Ball of Light. So that's what my book series is about. But then the million-dollar question is what is the ball of light? Right? Like, what is it? I mean, it could be something woo-woo. It could be like Harry Potter. It could be magic or mysticism. But I'm like, no, it's got to be something that I already have, something that I could give them. You can't give something to someone you don't have. So I had to, so I said, wow, maybe it's going to be what I've been doing with adults all this time. At the same time, I have 6 grandchildren, so I kind of noticed the challenges that they were facing, and I kind of got a lot of stories from them. And in fact, they're a lot of the characters in the book. So basically, I came up with this Magic Ball of Light book series. So I've got 2 of those books. Third one is on the way, which is basically helping kids feel empowered. Whatever that light is. Like I believe everyone is born with an inner light, like the song, "This Little Light of Mine, I'm going to let it shine." I mean, whatever they're meant to be in the world, but life sometimes dumps on them. Sometimes a parent or maybe a teacher or a grandparent might discourage them. Like, no, you can't do that. No, you can't have that dream, or you're not good enough to do that. And then we forget who we are meant to be in the world. And so that's sort of my mission, is to help kids find they haven't lost their light at 7 and 8 years old. We at 60, we lost our light, but somewhere along the way, helping them gain that confidence to be themselves and believe in themselves. So that's really what my mission is.
It's beautiful, the idea of empowering our next wave of leaders, our next society builders, our future builders, with that sense that they matter. Can you talk about when you present these books to children and you talk about them with children? I mean, what is that like?
Oh, I love that. I mean, it's fun to write the stories because, again, I'm used to writing. I used to write like policies, procedures, SOPs, contracts. So this is real fun for me. It's an imagination. You make it up. So, and I feel like that was my superpower that I missed out on as a child. And I guess I probably always had it in my work in creating interesting trainings for people that were innovative. So now I feel like I love connecting with people. I always did. I always loved standing in front of a room in a leadership course or a leadership event and being able to have eye contact with people, seeing their faces, seeing how they relate. And I love it with the kids because I share the stories. I tell them that they're born with a light inside. I, share the stories of the kids on how they tap into the light to overcome situations. And I see their excitement and their awe. And it really lights me up to see them. There's fun in writing it, but then if you sell the book, you don't know how they land on it. But in doing it in person is so rewarding because you get to interact with them.
And I imagine that just sharing this with kids, this entire podcast is all about kindness and building the future with kindness. I imagine that it must feel like really tender moments, like you're sharing that sort of kindness and the empathy and compassion. Have you ever had kids, talk to you and say, that you really helped them, or, have you ever heard like a really hard story from a kid and you just know that you did something to pick them up?
Well, one that I can think about came from a parent, and it came from a parent, and they sent me a letter saying that they shared this book. And I think it was like early on, I asked this, like a friend to do like a beta reader. It was like a consultant in the area, IT consultant, who has a 9-year-old little boy. He and his family read the book together, and it allowed, and then the feedback he gave to me was it allowed him, his son, to speak up and say, this is happening to me. I don't know which chapter it was, but it was something in one of the chapters that resonated with this young child who was able to say, hey, this happened to me, and was able to open up a space for him to talk to his parents about it. That feedback really helped me to then redo my first book to add reflective questions at the end of the chapter so that the child, if he or she is reading it alone, could reflect on that, or the teacher could ask it out loud in a class, or a parent could pause and say, hey, have you ever been bullied at school? Because that's one of the chapters. Or, hey, have you ever, not known how to manage your feelings? And so that way it opens up a doorway for discussion.
That's lovely. And you say that there are 3 books, two already, and one's coming when? When is that next one?
Probably later this year, later in 2026. I've got a lot of other things in the fire right now, but I wanted to at least do a trilogy. So I've got the summer camp, And then the winter holiday came out on December of this past year, just a couple months ago. And that one kind of leads to your podcast, I think. In the second book, I have the kids pass the light on to other kids because, and I mean, in the book, they're like imagining holding a ball of light and they're passing it, like, to make it like a story, like a magical story. But in reality, they're already have the light. So by being kind, and many people, a lot of the kids have said this to me, it's like, I say, what's in the light? And they'll say, it's being kind. And, and I don't necessarily always say it that particular way, but that's how they frame it. It's like being nice. So if I were going to pass you a ball of light, Michael, I could just pass it to you through the screen and it could be whatever you want it to be for you.
I love that. Yeah. I talk about kindness as being your superpower that you can pull from within at any moment because it is a superpower. You can make other people's entire day depending on how you treat them. You can also ruin somebody's day if you're not really attentive to that, or you're deliberately, you're in a bad mood and you're not acting out of the best values that you may treasure. So thinking about the audience here who may want to get these books, what ages are they appropriate for? What kids are you helping specifically?
Yeah, thank you. It would be for those early readers, the ones that 7 to 11. So the print is fairly large in the book. It's got like those sketched pictures in it. So
cool.
It would be something like a magic treehouse genre. I don't know. And I like the magic treehouse genre. Yeah. Because it's like, again, I just like because they're a time travel. I don't know if you know the series, but a brother and a sister go in a book they follow into these time travels. So I always like that too. 11 is perfect.
Okay. Yeah. Mary Pope Osborne. She was ever present in my household when I was raising my kids. So
good. Oh, good. That's great. Yeah. I love those because there's so much history there. They're learning while they're also time traveling.
Yes, absolutely. Well, this is great. So, let's go back to your career before writing, because I am very curious about this. I've spent so much time in corporate America, and I was always working with employee resource groups and working with inclusion initiatives, things like that. So talk to us. How are these skills different, or how are they the same? When you're talking to a group of kids, or you're talking to a group of executive leaders or middle managers, what are the kinds of things that you're sharing, and how are they similar?
And they really are similar. And in the corporate world, we call it emotional intelligence, right? In schools, they call it social and emotional learning. So now when you and I probably went to school, we learned reading, writing, and arithmetic. Now they're learning social and emotional learning, which sometimes the book, that's why I'm invited a lot of times to these schools, because it satisfies a curriculum. It's not just, here's an author, but it satisfies their curriculum. So yeah. And I mean, in my career in HR, I used to do employee relations, and it was always really, when you boil it down to it, it was a lack of, communication skills, which caused a conflict or misunderstanding. There was like someone comes to HR, they don't feel like they're being respected, or they don't feel like they're included, or they feel like, their manager's being mean to them, or whatever it is, or the manager is who I worked with. And that was really what my sweet spot was to kind of help them gain these skills of emotional intelligence that they perhaps did not gain as a child.
Yeah, what I found is that in a workplace, there are often a lot of emotions that people either don't address until they become big and then they explode out, or they get very, very quiet, and slowly either it erodes the mental health of the person who just feels like they can't speak up, they can't talk about what's going on. Have you, just one more question about your previous career here. Have you ever encountered situations where you had leaders who blossomed, who were able to latch on to emotional intelligence, where previously they poo-pooed it, they said this is kumbaya, it's weak, why are we doing this? Have you ever seen that transformation?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't have done executive coaching for so long if I didn't see that rewarding. You see the difference. I'd say probably 75% improved. I mean, maybe 25% just never got it, or just didn't want to get it, because I was always hired. Sometimes I was hired to fix people, and they didn't want to be fixed. So I can think of one executive woman that I hired. That I coached many years ago. She was in the C-suite. on a nonprofit in Washington, D.C. And of course, her manager, her CEO, called me in to fix her. And she was an introvert. So, she was in a way invisible in a meeting or in a boardroom or in a board meeting. She was quiet. She was the only woman. And they said, we want her to be visible. So I had to kind of help her to be like, what does that look like? Because as an introvert, they need time to think about what they're going to say before they say it. So I would coach her to say, okay, well, maybe you could ask a question. You could agree with their point. You could say, you could just be heard or seen, not invisible. So she really excelled. And I did this with a lot of my clients. I would suggest they go to Toastmasters because I was in Toastmasters for many years. It's it's an organization that helps people with public speaking. And it's not so much with public speaking, but confidence. Because it's in that impromptu speaking that, somebody walks up to you and says, hey, what's going on with A, B, and C? And you're like a deer in the headlights because you don't know what to say. Through Toastmasters, you learn to be quick on your feet. You learn how to say what you got to say. Or, gosh, let me get back to you in about 3 hours or whatever. But, you don't get. So anybody that I refer to Toastmasters is, again, she became the president of her Toastmaster club. She's doing contests now. It's like I can't say too much. I can't say a lot. I love Toastmasters. So.
Yeah, it's a great organization. And once you learn all of the rules of engagement, increase your confidence. Absolutely. And the story that you brought up is one that resonates with me because I always think about men and women at tables and how in a lot of settings, women do not get the same amount of airtime. They don't get the same amount of belief from everybody else around the table. And so do you talk about allyship? Is that something that you also bring to the table about how others can show up for those who have less perceived power at the table?
I haven't really gotten into that too much. I'd be curious to hear more about that from you, Michael. But I guess I think what you're saying is that, you go into a room and go back to my client. She's a little bit quiet, maybe to have you in the room I'm vulnerable. I say, hey, look, sometimes I have a hard time jumping in. Can you support me? Is that what you mean?
That's exactly it. Yeah. Just the idea that I think that kindness, it's like you're talking about the children handing the ball of light around, and that is handing off some kindness. It is derived from within, but it's also something that we can add to other people's kindness. And what I've seen in corporate America, at least, is that sometimes people in the room need to have that kindness handed off. And so being aware that somebody's awfully quiet at the table and saying, we haven't heard from that person. Hey, would you mind just, only if you have something to add, would you mind just, speaking up and telling us what your thoughts are? Because we hired you for a reason. Right.
Yeah, and I love that because as a facilitator, I would do that. But sometimes I would have hoped the CEO who hired me to help this client of mine didn't do that. He could have just said, hey, so and so, what do you think about A or B or C? But
Absolutely.
He wanted her. I call it like double Dutch. You got to jump in. You got to get in, when you're at a board meeting, you just got to, and women tend to not jump in like that, because they are taught to be polite or to be invited.
Right. Yeah. No, but it sounds like you really helped her out. So that's really great. So kindness, what does it mean to you in your personal life, in your family, in your community spaces?
Yeah, kindness is, it is just real. It is a lot, depends on emotional intelligence. So it could be that you may not feel like you want to be kind. Say someone cuts you off in traffic, your kids or grandkids in the car. How are you going to respond? Okay, you can respond in a lot of bad ways, but they're watching you. They're watching how you're responding to this person who either cut in front of you in line or did whatever. It's about being able to hold that feeling like, gosh, I'm really mad this person cut me off, and choosing to be kind rather than reacting in an ugly way, because we all can be ugly. Let's face it. None of us are perfect. So being able to have that pause, and I would love to be able to teach children that and some kids have a hard time with the emotional regulations, and so, I have some grandchildren that have ADHD. So it's harder for them on the pause, but they're learning skills, and I love that schools are doing this. They're learning skill sets to be able to walk away, take a deep breath, or they have like a little chair in the room that they go to be able to pause and think about how they want to react. Choose kindness over just how your knee-jerk reaction is.
Right. Margie, I love the fact that you brought it up as like this sort of counterpoint, like you have a value system of how you want to be in that moment, but then you have these other emotions that are totally valid. How do you stay true to the fact that somebody did cut you off and that really isn't great, and also still live your values of, you don't want to push the person or yell at them or anything like that. But how do you coach people in like holding space for both things?
Well, and that's a big part of what I did emotional intelligence training. I mean, so basically you're learning to create the pause. They never had it. They went from person cuts me off to flipping them off, or whatever it is. So that, to realize that you do have a choice. It's like part of the education or the coaching is to be able to say you can choose. You can choose to take a deep breath, notice the trigger. We know, notice the triggers, and maybe certain people trigger you. If a person is late, maybe that's another trigger for you. A person who gets upset that someone's late to a meeting. But if that person is late, you're triggered. But if other people I'm thinking about managers, if other people are not late, you're not triggered. So being able to notice, why am I upset that Michael was late to the meeting, but I'm not upset that Susan was late to the meeting?
Right.
To be able to manage again, because managers need to manage their emotions because they have that role, and employees are always looking at them just like they look at their mom or their dad or their grandparents. They're the role model. So it's huge, really, in an organization.
Yeah, having that ability to reflect, I think, is so important. I want to shift gears a little, and I want to take you on a thought experiment with me.
Okay.
Are you game?
I'm game. Woo, let's do it.
So we're going to hop into a time machine together. We're going to go forward 100 years. Oh. And I'm telling you, hey, Margie, we did all the right things during these 100 years. When we step outside of the time machine, we're going to look at a golden, amazing, glowing, beautiful future. When we step outside of those doors, what are you looking for to confirm that we actually made that great future? What does it look like?
Well, I guess you and I both grew up with Star Trek and all these other sci-fi things, the Jetsons, and a lot of the things that are happening in the Jetsons are happening now, aren't they? So if I think about the future even more, I don't have flying cars yet, but maybe we will. But I would like to be able to see what we're talking about, the way that people treat each other, the way that they're interacting and they are kind. And I am a little concerned right now, not to digress, about kids using these a lot and losing the ability to connect with people, because there's texting, it's chat GPT, it's AI and losing, my fears are losing that in person to person connection. So if I had a magic wand or a magic ball of light where people could have that in the future in 2126, right? 2126, I would like to be able to see people still, sitting on a couch together, still talking face to face, still holding hands, still, playing outside in nature, using their imagination, having fun, maybe I'm really going back into the past. I don't know. I'd like to be able to have that future, where there's that personal connection in 100 years from now.
I love that so much. I love that idea that we could look inside of people's homes and get a sense of, are they hugging? Are they sitting together? Are they talking? That's a beautiful future, and I want to be part of it. Now, here's the follow-up question. So I said, as we were in the time machine, hey, guess what, Margie? We did all the right things. What are the right things? What do we do to make that future?
Well, I guess I had this thought this morning, when I was doing my journaling, is meeting kids where they are. I mean, I can sit here and say, here's a book, here's a book, here's a book. because maybe that's how I learned, but maybe that's not how they're going to get it. Maybe that ball of light can be different than a book. Maybe it can be an app. Maybe it can be a video game. I mean, maybe it can be, because I could tell them the way I want to tell them, but they're like, hey, we don't watch Mr. Rogers anymore. Mr. Rogers is boring, so maybe creating a new way to teach them kindness, to teach them what you and I are talking about through a medium of a way that they're going to learn it.
That makes sense. So, but still spreading that important word about the light that we each bring and the kindness. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. When the world is not treating you well, and you are trying to get back to a space where you feel inspired and you feel like you can generate that kindness and share it again with the world, what do? What do you look for to recharge and feel inspired again?
When I feel kind of in a funk is what you're saying, kind of like I just feel off a little bit, I go outside, I go out in nature, even if it's cold like it has been, or if I can, just to be out, to put my feet on the ground, bare feet on the ground, just to connect, because that's what's real. I mean, this is like this is a real table. This is a real computer. This is a real pair of glasses, but sometimes we get in our heads and we're spinning out of something that's not even real. So getting back to what is real, whatever that is for you, taking a walk, exercising. I love to swim. I swim laps. So sometimes, obviously it's indoor swimming now, not outdoor swimming, but swimming is where I kind of reconnect. I don't know, something with the motion, something with the water. I think everybody has to find their thing. Right. Other people like knitting, or other people like singing, or other people like dancing. You got to find your thing to kind of get you back in your center.
Right. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And if you were to give advice to our listeners on how they can spruce up their own kindness practice, are there ways that you think of it that are really deliberate, that are mindful? Are there ways that you you've mentioned journaling, and I think that's a really cool thing, but are there other different ways that you bring that to life?
So you wake up every day and you say, I intend, no matter what happens today, I am going to be kind. So you plant that seed, and then it's almost like a game. Okay, well, I'm going to really do it. No matter what happens, I'm going to be kind. And then you can kind of test yourself, like on a litmus test, on a scale of 1 to 5, how were you? So it's like a way of just making that daily intention of choosing kindness.
Love that. Yeah. So this is wonderful. What are the things that you're working on right now? Tell everybody where they can find you and how they can support you and plug into this amazing wisdom.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Michael. This has been a pleasure. People can find me at my website, magicballoflight.com. So that's the book series. I'm also on LinkedIn as Margie Hamner. I'm sure if you just look for Margie Hamner, as you see on the screen, you'll find me there too. Facebook, Instagram, all the big regular socials. I'm up to writing books. As you know, you and I are writing a book together for Brave Healers, so I'm excited about that. That's a little different for me. It was a little outside my lane because it was not an imaginary kids book. So right. So I'm excited to be part of that. I'm also going to be part of Gen Brave, which is another book series with Brave Healers, but this one's Brave Kids. I wrote in that one this past year, but now we're doing Gen Brave, so it's a little bit older, 13 to 17, that kind of high school age. Right. So I'll be writing a chapter for that series as well, and I love working in the collaborative books because I get to meet cool people like you.
Yeah, the collaborations are just amazing. I always find that it's the souls, it's the people that I connect with that matter so much to me in every endeavor. And to be able to put together something that is going to help humanity, and there are 24 other voices, and you can always turn and ask and say, hey, Margie, what do you think about this? And how can we collaborate again? It's just so much fun.
It really is.
So are there any other pieces of wisdom that you wanted to share with our Future is Kind audience before we sign off?
I think we've said it all. I'm giving you all my secrets.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I encourage everybody, reach out to Margie. She's definitely going to be able to help you and your kids find a brighter, more wonderful future. So thank you again for being on the program.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
This episode's Kindness Challenge. Set a daily kindness intention before your feet hit the floor each morning. Decide, no matter what happens today, I will choose kindness. Then treat it like a game. Notice your triggers and keep score. Want to stay inspired so you can stay kind? When you feel off or depleted, go outside and reconnect with what's real. Put your bare feet on the ground. Take a walk, swim laps, or find the physical practice that brings you back to center. You've been listening to our Future is Kind podcast, where building what's next is a choice. Make your next choice a good one and help build the future we want to live in.